She chose death with honor, but a human refused to let her die. The sea was cold and endless. It pressed on her armor. It slid into the torn seams. It found every crack. The alien warrior drifted down through the blue like a falling leaf. Her name was Nyara of the Azure Guard. Once proud, once fast. Now a dim shape in deep water. Wreckage turned around her in slow circles. Bright shards flashed and vanished. A broken wing. A cracked mask. A strip of metal that caught the sun and then was gone. Above, the battle had burned the sky. Then a beam cut her craft in half. The cockpit crushed her ribs. Her left leg failed. Her suit lost seal. The ocean welcomed her like a cold lover. She did not fight it. She had trained for this ending. Her people called it the calm return. To fall, to accept, to become still. Honor was a clear word in her mind. Honor was a door that opened only once. She thought of the long war. Of reasons told and retold until they sounded like chants, mines, borders, old insults. None of it mattered here. Not in the blind blue. Her hair streamed like pale fire around her face. Her orange skin, once bright, was now a dull sunset. Each breath burned. Then each breath hurt less. Numbness came like snow. Sounds faded. The distant thunder of ships. The hiss of her leaking suit. All of it went thin and far away. She counted her heartbeats. They slowed. She let go of fear, the way her teachers had shown her long ago. Memories floated up. First flight, Oath Day. Laughter in a mess hall before dawn. A friend who never missed a target. A sister's hand on her shoulder. She tried to hold one memory tight. It slipped like water. She smiled anyway. This was the way. This was the highest path. Her mouth opened. Bubbles rose in a silver ribbon. She watched them climb to a sun she would not see again. I am ready, she thought. Arms wrapped around her. They were strong. They were sudden. They locked under her chest plate and pulled. The pain was a sharp white flare. Her eyes flew open. A shadow filled her vision. A visor. A dark shape in heavy gear. Not a Thetheran design. Human. No. The word rang inside her skull. She tried to twist free. Her body did not obey. The human kicked with powerful, steady strokes. One arm held her tight. The other cut the water like a blade. They rose, pressure eased. Light grew. Her anger grew with it. I chose my death, she tried to say. Only bubbles came out. He did not stop, her head turned. She saw his face through a scratched visor. Short dark hair, a jaw rough with stubble. Eyes focused, not cruel. Eyes that had seen too much. He glanced at her once, then looked up again and swam harder. There was no helmet link between them. There were no words. Only the hard rhythm of his will. She wanted to strike him, to push him away, to finish the path she had started. But her hands were numb. Her leg was dead weight. Her thoughts blurred. She tried to hold on to fury. It slipped like the rest. They broke the surface in a burst of spray and heat. Sun slammed into her eyes. The wind hit her face. She gasped on reflex, then coughed brine. He flipped them in the water. He kept her chin above the waves. He breathed hard but steady. Stay with me, he said, and though she did not know his words, she knew his tone. A low craft roared toward them. Gray hull, human markings. He waved once, then held her again, firm as iron. Foam slapped her cheeks. The numbness retreated just enough to let pain bloom everywhere. She wanted the dark back. The dark was soft. The dark was quiet. Hooks bit the water. Hands reached down from the deck. The human passed her up first. She slid onto metal that shook under her weight. The sky spun. Faces hovered, then blurred. He climbed after her, coughing, dragging air into his chest as if he too had almost gone under. She turned her head. Their eyes met. She saw resolve like a wall. She saw it and hated it and feared it and for a heartbeat trusted it. Then the world went narrow. The light thinned to a thread. His voice followed her into the dark, steady and low, as if promising something she had never asked for. She had accepted death, but human hands had not accepted it for her. Pain. That was the first thing she felt when she opened her eyes. It came in pulses, deep and slow, echoing through every bone in her body. Then came the light, white, sterile, and too sharp. She squinted, trying to lift her hand, but even that small motion sent a jolt through her ribs. The air smelled strange. Not salt, not smoke, something cold and clean. Machines hummed softly nearby, their rhythms unfamiliar. As her vision cleared, She realized she was lying on a narrow bed surrounded by silver walls. Lines of soft blue light pulsed along panels beside her. Medical equipment. Human design. A figure sat in a chair next to her bed. Head tilted forward, arms crossed, asleep. She studied him in silence. The rescuer. The one who had stolen her death. His face was unmasked now, strong, scarred, human. His dark hair fell over his forehead and faint stubble shadowed his jaw. He looked tired, not weak but worn down by years of saving things that did not wish to be saved. When she shifted slightly, the movement drew a small gasp from her throat. He woke instantly, eyes sharp and alert. "Easy there," he said. His voice was low, calm, almost gentle. "You've got 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, and half your leg reconstructed. Moving is a bad idea." She stared at him, her golden eyes narrowing. "You should have let me die." He blinked as if she had just insulted him. Then slowly a faint smile curved his lips. "That's a hell of a way to say thank you." "I did not ask for your help," she said, each word clipped and hard. Her throat burned as she spoke. "Death in battle is honor. You have taken that from me." He leaned back in his chair, studying her the way a medic might study a strange wound. "You're serious, aren't you?" he murmured. "You actually wanted to drown. I accepted my end," she said. "It was mine to choose." He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, see, that's where we differ. I don't let people die when I can help it." She turned her face away, staring at the metal wall. "You are human. You know nothing of our ways," he chuckled softly. "Fair, and you don't know mine. But for the record, my name's Jalen Ward, combat medic. Earth Alliance forces, retired. I did not ask your name. You didn't have to." He pushed a small container toward her. "Water, your throat's dry." She ignored it. He sighed and took a sip himself. "Suit yourself." The silence stretched, filled only by the hum of machines and the steady beep of her heart monitor. Then she asked, without looking at him, "Where am I?" "On my ship. Horizon, medical deck." He gestured toward the walls. "We're in orbit above Corrales IV, the planet you were about to make your tomb." Her gaze flicked to him. "Why save me?" "Your kind profits from our wars." Jalen's mouth tightened. "Not me, I don't fight for anyone anymore." She tried to sit up. Pain ripped through her torso, forcing a hiss between her teeth. He moved fast, steadying her shoulder without touching her wound. "Hey, stop. You'll reopen half your stitches." Her anger burned hot through the pain. "Do not command me, human." "Then don't act like you're still on the battlefield," he shot back, voice hardening. "You're not a soldier right now. You're my patient." For a heartbeat, silence again. 2 wills collided, hers born of tradition, his forged in defiance. Finally, she sank back onto the bed, exhausted. Her voice dropped. "Among my people, to die in combat is sacred. You have robbed me of my place among the stars." Jalen folded his arms, watching her quietly. "You ever think maybe your ancestors would rather you live? Maybe honor isn't about dying well, it's about living when it hurts." She glared at him, but his words lingered like a spark she couldn't extinguish. He stood, moving toward the door. "Rest. You'll hate me less after some sleep." As the door slid shut behind him, she stared at the ceiling. His voice echoed in her mind, simple, defiant, human. Maybe honor isn't about dying well. Her eyes closed. For the first time since the ocean, she didn't feel sure of anything. And deep inside, that uncertainty frightened her more than death ever had. The dream was of falling again, only this time the water never stopped rising. Nyara woke with a gasp, clutching her chest as pain flared under her ribs. For a few seconds, she couldn't tell where she was. The ceiling above her glowed with soft light, the hum of machinery surrounding her like a mechanical heartbeat. Then the memories returned. The crash, the human, the ship. She turned her head toward the door. The room was empty. Her rescuer, Jalen, was gone. Only the faint vibration of the ship told her it was moving. Nyara closed her eyes and tried to steady her breathing. The human's words from before still echoed in her mind. Maybe honor isn't about dying well. Maybe it's about living when it hurts. Foolish sentiment, and yet, it would not leave her. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp alarm. A red light flashed across the wall. The ship's calm hum turned into a warning growl. Nyara forced herself upright, pain stabbing through her side. The door hissed open and Jalen rushed in, eyes wide. "Stay down," he ordered, moving to the control panel on the wall. "What is it?" she asked, ignoring his command. Not good, he muttered. We've been detected. A Drethar patrol ship just dropped out of warp. Her blood ran cold. They're searching for survivors from the battle. Exactly, Jalen said grimly. And they've already hailed us. He hit a few keys and a voice crackled through the comm. Deep, metallic, and far too calm. Human vessel, identify yourself. Prepare for inspection. You are suspected of harboring fugitives of war. Nyara's pulse quickened. She knew that tone. The Drethar never asked. They simply confirmed before they killed. Jalen exhaled slowly, rubbing his face. I can't fight them. This ship's a med transport and no stealth field, no cannons worth mentioning. Then we'll be boarded, she said. And when they find me, you'll be executed for aiding an enemy. Yeah, that's the part I'd like to avoid. He turned to her, desperate but thinking fast. You know their scanners, their tactics, any ideas? Her eyes met his. You're asking me for help? Unless you want to die again, he said. And drag me down with you. Nyara hesitated. The irony burned. She had wanted death only a day ago. Now somehow survival felt like defiance. She swung her legs off the bed, ignoring his protests. Help me to the co-pilot's chair. You shouldn't even be walking. Would you rather explain to your patrol friends why you have an Athetheran officer on your ship? He grimaced. Point taken. With effort, she reached the small cockpit. The Drethar vessel loomed on the screen, all sharp edges and predatory gleam. Its sensors swept across space like a searching eye. Sit, Jalen said, helping her lower herself into the co-pilot's seat. Now what? She studied the human controls, her fingers moving with calculated precision. Their scanners depend on power signatures. If we appear to be shutting down, their system will register us as harmless debris. You can fake that? I can convince them, she said, tapping commands. Tell them you are complying with their order but need time to shut down the reactor safely. Jalen raised an eyebrow but opened the comm. This is Medical Ship Horizon. We're initiating power down sequence. Reactor stabilization requires 3 minutes. The Drethar voice replied after a pause, irritated but logical. You have 3 minutes. Failure to comply will result in destruction. As soon as the signal cut, Jalen turned to her. Now what? Now, Nyara said. We run like hell. Her fingers danced across the screen. The ship's lights dimmed. Power signatures dropped, but deep within she redirected energy to the engines. When I say now, push the throttle and dive toward the planet's atmosphere. Dive? We'll burn up. Only if you hesitate, the seconds crawled. The Drethar ship drew closer, sensors scanning. Nyara counted down under her breath. 3, 2, 1 now. Jalen slammed the throttle. The horizon lurched violently, pressing them into their seats. Outside, the stars vanished in a blur of blue flame as they dove toward the green and gold curve of the planet below. The hull screamed under the friction. The air turned to fire. Warning lights erupted across the console, but Nyara didn't flinch. Hold the angle. The ionosphere will mask our heat. Jalen gritted his teeth, hands tight on the controls. Remind me to never argue with you again. Below them, clouds boiled like silver storms. Behind them, the Drethar ship fired, beams flashing through the upper atmosphere but missing. Then suddenly silence. The radar went clear. They've lost us, Jalen said, disbelief in his voice. Not lost, Nyara corrected, breathing hard. Confused. They'll scan the last known position for hours before realizing we're gone. For the first time since her rescue, she smiled faintly. Humans may lack grace, but you follow orders well. Jalen laughed, half relief, half exhaustion. I'll take that as a compliment, Princess. Her smile faded, but not completely. The word princess would have angered her yesterday. Now it almost sounded alive. As the ship leveled above the shimmering clouds, Jalen glanced at her, pale, injured but burning with that same stubborn fire that had first made him dive after her. Where to now? He asked. Anywhere, she said softly, as long as it's away from war. For a long moment they sat in the dim glow of the cockpit. Two fugitives from two worlds, and then for the first time, both finally free. The planet beneath them was not welcoming. Its surface stretched out in harsh tones of bronze and red, a world baked by twin suns and choked with dust. Nyara watched through the viewport as Jalen guided the horizon into the atmosphere, the turbulence rattling the hull. Hold on, he said, as the ship bucked under another wave of heat. I am holding, she replied dryly, gripping the armrest until her injured leg flared with pain. Below, a cluster of dull metallic domes came into view, a mining outpost. From orbit, it had looked like a cluster of insects clinging to the desert. Up close, it looked worse. Not exactly luxury, Jalen muttered. But it's quiet, and the locals owe me a favor. The ship touched down hard, the landing gear kicking up clouds of rust-colored dust that swirled in the wind. When the engines powered down, silence filled the cockpit, the heavy kind that always comes after running for your life. Jalen stood and glanced back at her. You can rest here. It's off-grid. No one's going to scan this place unless they're very determined. Nyara unstrapped herself, fighting a wave of dizziness. You risk much for a stranger. He shrugged. You're not a stranger anymore. You're my patient. Her jaw tightened at that word again. Patient. It made her feel small, weak, something she had never been. But as he helped her down the narrow corridor, she realized she could not walk without leaning on him. Each step sent fire up her side, and pride alone kept her from collapsing. They exited through the side ramp. The air outside hit like a furnace, hot, dry, carrying the smell of iron and ozone. The outpost sprawled ahead. Rows of metal structures half buried in sand, their edges rusted and pitted by years of storms. A stocky man approached them, wiping grease from his hands. Jalen Ward, he said with disbelief. Didn't expect to see your face again. Nice to see you too, Harding, Jalen replied. I need shelter for a few days. Harding's gaze shifted to Nyara. His expression hardened. That's not human. Sharp eyes, Jalen said evenly. She's injured. I'm keeping her alive. That's all. The older man frowned but nodded slowly. You always find the trouble no one else wants. Use the supervisor's quarters. Old place at the edge of the camp. It's still got power. Appreciate it, Jalen said. They made their way across the dusty yard to a small isolated building. Inside, the air was cooler. Sparse furniture. A single bed. A humming life support panel. It was enough. Jalen guided her to the bed and activated the med table beside it. You should rest. That dive through the atmosphere didn't help your injuries. Nyara lowered herself onto the thin mattress, every movement careful. I have rested too long already. My body grows weak. That's called healing, he said with a faint smile. She watched him unpack his gear, a worn medical case, a battered toolkit, a portable power cell. Everything about him was practical, efficient. No wasted motion, no hint of fear. Finally, curiosity broke through her pride. Why do you help me? She asked. You could have left me to die. You could sell me to my enemies and live rich for years. He glanced at her over his shoulder. Because I've seen too much death. And maybe I'm tired of pretending that saving someone is the wrong thing to do. Her eyes softened just for a moment. Among my people, compassion is a luxury. It clouds judgment. Then maybe your people could use a little more of it, he said. She almost smiled, almost. Outside, a hot wind blew across the desert, rattling the window panes. Inside, silence settled between them again, but this time it felt different. Not hostile, not cold. Just waiting. Jalen broke it first. I'll check with Harding about supplies. We'll need water, fuel cells, maybe a med patch or two. Stay here and don't open the door for anyone but me. Nyara tilted her head. You command much for a medic. He paused at the door, smirking. Old habits die hard. When he left, she leaned back against the wall, staring at the cracked ceiling. The human's voice lingered in her head, quiet, stubborn, unafraid. In her life as a warrior, she had been trained to see humanity as reckless, greedy, and violent. But the man who saved her didn't fit any of those words. As dusk settled over the barren horizon, Nyara's eyes grew heavy. The pain in her ribs dulled. The hum of the ship outside became distant. For the first time since the battle, she allowed herself to drift toward sleep, and she realized something strange. For once, she was not dreaming of dying. She was dreaming of surviving. Night fell fast on the desert world. 2 suns dipped below the dunes, leaving the sky bruised purple and gold. Wind howled across the metal roofs, filling the silence between Nyara's heartbeats. She sat upright on the bed, every sense alert. Something was wrong. The hum of the outpost generators had stopped. Total quiet. Even the air vents were still, then came the sound, faint but clear. Boots heavy measured, getting closer. Jalen? She called softly. No answer. Her hand reached for the small plasma knife he had left on the bedside table. The blade flickered to life with a blue pulse. She moved carefully, pain biting into her ribs, but she ignored it. Training took over. She crept toward the narrow window, peering through the slats. Outside, shadows moved between the buildings. Tall, broad, with armor that gleamed faintly under the twin moons. Drethar. They had found them. The door burst open. Nyara spun, blade raised, only to see Jalen stumble inside, panting, face streaked with sweat and dust. "They're here," he gasped. "Search party. Whole squad of them. We've got minutes, maybe less." "How?" she demanded. Harding sent a signal. "He was forced. His daughter's in their custody," Jalen said quickly, grabbing his pack. "He warned me before they reached the comm relay." Nyara's anger flickered, not at Harding, but at herself for being surprised. "You should have left me." "Not my style," he replied. "Come on, we're leaving." He lifted the floor hatch near the bed, revealing a maintenance tunnel. Cold air rushed up from the dark. "You go first," he said. "You think I can crawl?" She snapped. "Then let me help you." He climbed down and reached up. She hesitated for only a second before taking his hand. The pain in her leg flared white-hot as she lowered herself into the narrow shaft. The tunnel smelled of dust and metal. It was barely wide enough for her to crawl through. The sound of boots echoed above them. Closer now. Jalen switched on a small wrist lamp, casting thin light along the walls. "This leads to the outer pad," he whispered. "If we're lucky, they haven't found the horizon yet." "Luck is for those without skill," she murmured, forcing herself forward. "Then we'll take both," he replied. They moved quickly. The tunnel curved downward, then split into two paths. Jalen checked his scanner. Left. This one connects to the landing zone. A thump echoed behind them, then another, heavier one. "They've found the hatch," Nyara said grimly. "Keep moving." Pain screamed through her side, but she didn't slow. The tunnel ended at a grated exit that opened to the surface. Jalen pushed it open carefully. A blast of hot wind hit them. The landing pad was 200 meters away, bathed in dim light from the ship's running lamps. Between them and safety, Drethar soldiers patrolled in pairs. Jalen cursed under his breath. "We can't fight them head-on." "Then we don't," Nyara said. She scanned the terrain. Lines of solar collectors stretched in rows like mirrors. "We move between the panels. They scatter the sensors." "Lead the way, Commander," he said quietly. They slipped out, crouched low, moving through the maze of solar arrays. The metal creaked beneath their feet, each sound loud in the silence. The Drethar voices carried on the wind, guttural, impatient. Halfway to the ship, a spotlight swept across the field. Nyara froze. The beam passed inches from her shoulder, then moved on. But one of the soldiers shouted something sharp. "They've seen us," Jalen hissed. The first plasma bolt scorched the sand beside them. "Run!" he yelled, grabbing her arm. They broke into a desperate sprint. Energy blasts lit the darkness. Each step was agony for Nyara, but she kept moving, every instinct screaming survival. The horizon's ramp began lowering as they neared it, triggered by Jalen's remote link. They leapt onto the platform just as another blast struck behind them, the shockwave nearly knocking them down. Jalen slammed the hatch controls. "Strap in!" he shouted, diving into the pilot's seat. The ship roared to life. The Drethar soldiers opened fire, their rifles glowing like stars against the dark. Impacts rocked the hull, shields at 40%. Jalen shouted. Nyara dragged herself into the co-pilot's chair, fingers flying across the weapons console. "I'll handle the countermeasures." "Thought you didn't take orders from humans," he said through clenched teeth. "I don't," she replied, eyes blazing. "But I give them." The ship surged upward. Dust and fire swirled beneath them. A Drethar fighter appeared on the horizon, engines flaring. "Hold course," she commanded. "Bank left in 3, 2, now." Jalen obeyed. The ship tilted sharply, skimming low across the dunes. The enemy fire missed by inches. Nyara released a burst of flares, each glowing bright enough to blind the fighter's sensors. It veered off, disoriented. Jalen whooped under his breath. "You're full of surprises, Princess." "Save your breath," she said. "We're not safe yet." The horizon punched through the upper atmosphere, the stars opening before them like a sea of diamonds. Below, the desert planet shrank into shadow. Jalen leaned back, his chest heaving. "You realize we just declared war on 3 governments at once?" Nyara glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Then perhaps," she said softly, "it's time someone did." For a long moment the cockpit was silent, only the hum of the engines filling the air. Then Jalen smiled. You really are trouble. Nyara looked ahead where the stars stretched endless and cold. So are you, human. That's why we might survive. Silence filled the horizon after the battle, the kind of silence that makes every breath sound too loud. Jalen guided the ship into the shadows of a canyon system, jagged cliffs rising on both sides, red stone carved by ancient storms. Radar clear, he murmured. We lost them, for now, Nyara said. Her gaze remained fixed on the screen, scanning for pursuit. Drethar do not give up easily. Neither do I, Jalen said, easing the ship into a dark cave mouth. The engines dimmed, leaving only the low thrum of life support. We'll hide here till things cool down. The cave was vast, wide enough for the ship to fit comfortably. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like teeth, and faint light from the canyon mouth glowed against the hull. Jalen powered down most systems, reducing their energy signature to near zero. Nyara exhaled slowly. You risk everything for a cause that is not yours. He turned his chair toward her. You keep saying that, but maybe it is my cause. She tilted her head. You mean the war between my people and the Drethar? That is no concern of yours. Maybe not directly, he admitted. But I've seen too many wars that weren't supposed to be ours. Wars that someone else started for profit. Her eyes narrowed. Explain. Jalen hesitated, then stood. He opened a small metal case from under his seat and pulled out a hollow pad. When he activated it, rows of encrypted files appeared, filled with names, codes, and transaction records. These, he said quietly, are shipments from the Earth Consortium. Officially, they're humanitarian aid. In reality, they're weapons, sent to both the Athetherans and the Drethar. Nyara's expression turned to stone. You lie. He didn't answer. He tapped one of the files, projecting a holographic image into the air. A transport ship, marked with Athetheran insignia, unloading containers identical to Drethar supply crates. Same manufacturer, Jalen said. Different paint. Nyara's jaw clenched. Her mind replayed decades of conflict, millions dead, planets burned, all for a war that now looked like a carefully managed business. Why show me this? Because you need to know what you're really fighting for, Jalen said. You were ready to die for honor, but honor means nothing if it's built on someone else's lie. She stared at the floating records, her throat tight. If this is true, then my entire life has been built on deceit. Jalen's voice softened. Then maybe it's time to build something new. Silence hung between them, heavy and raw. The cave seemed to press inward, trapping them between truth and disbelief. Finally, Nyara whispered, If your people are selling weapons to both sides, why risk your life exposing it? He looked down at the glowing hollow pad. Because once I helped deliver one of those shipments. I didn't know what it was at the time. When I found out, it was too late. That convoy armed a strike that killed 1,000 civilians, half of them children. His voice cracked slightly, just once. I swore I'd never be part of something like that again. For the first time, Nyara saw the pain behind his calm exterior. A wound deeper than any she carried. You seek redemption, she said quietly. He met her gaze. Don't we all? Outside, thunder rolled through the canyon, a storm building far above. It echoed like distant gunfire. Nyara rose slowly, limping toward the viewport. If I take this information to my command, they will call it human propaganda. They will silence me. Not if you have proof, Jalen said. I know people, a network off record. They've been gathering evidence for years. Together we could expose the consortium, maybe even end this war. End a war that has lasted for centuries, she asked bitterly. You think truth alone can stop bloodshed? I think it's a start, he said. Someone has to take the first step. Nyara turned back to him. The faint light caught the scars on his face. The lines of exhaustion etched deep. You risk everything for strangers, for me, for people who would call you enemy. He smiled faintly. Maybe I'm just stubborn, or foolish, she said, but her voice lacked its usual edge. They stood there for a long moment, two fugitives surrounded by shadows and secrets. The rain began to fall outside, soft at first, then harder, washing over the cliffs, drumming against the hull like a heartbeat. Finally, Nyara said, If what you say is true, the galaxy must hear it. Not from a human. From someone who has fought for the lie. You'd stand against your own people? I would stand for the truth, she said. Even if it kills me. Jalen nodded slowly. Then we'll do it together. She looked at him. The man who had stolen her death and replaced it with something far more dangerous. purpose. The storm raged outside, lightning flaring through the canyon like fire across the sky. And deep within that storm, in the quiet heart of an old war, something new was born. A fragile alliance between an alien soldier and a human healer, not out of trust, not out of mercy, but out of the simple, stubborn belief that two broken souls might still change the course of a dying galaxy. The storm passed by morning. The canyon lay silent under thin mist, and the horizon emerged from shadow like a creature reborn. Inside, the air smelled faintly of ozone and metal, the scent of repairs, of preparation, of purpose. Nyara stood by the viewport, her reflection pale against the stars. Her uniform had been replaced with a simple flight suit Jalen had found in storage. The once bright markings of her warrior rank were gone. She looked free and lost at the same time. Jalen entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of steaming liquid. "Synth coffee," he said with a small smile. "Closest thing this ship makes to civilization." She took it cautiously. The first sip was bitter and unfamiliar, but strangely grounding. "You humans consume the strangest things." "It keeps us awake," he said, sitting beside her. "And lately I think we're both going to need it." He turned the holopad on again, displaying a navigation route glowing across the map. "Vidian system," he said. "There's a neutral trade post there. My contacts will meet us, people who can help get the evidence out." Nyara nodded slowly. "Then we go there." Jalen hesitated. "It won't be easy. The Drether will be hunting us. So will your command once they realize you've vanished." "I know," she said. "But truth is rarely safe." They launched at first light. The horizon rose through thin cloud and climbed into the emptiness of space. The storm below dwindled to nothing. The stars opened above them like a promise. For hours they traveled in silence. Jalen monitored the instruments while Nyara studied the star map, memorizing the coordinates like a soldier memorizes escape routes. Finally, she spoke. "When I was a cadet, we were taught that humans were unpredictable, emotional, dangerous. Now I see that the danger was never your nature. It was your heart." He looked over at her, a half smile touching his face. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It was not meant as one," she said, though her lips twitched in amusement. "Sure it wasn't," he replied. They dropped out of hyperspace near Vidian's second moon, a rough sphere of silver-gray rock. Orbiting it was the station Jalen had promised, a patchwork of modules and docking arms glowing faintly against the black. From a distance, it looked like every other frontier outpost, unremarkable, invisible to power and politics. "Here we are," Jalen said. "The Haven Exchange. Don't let the name fool you. It's more than trade. It's resistance." As they approached, the station's comm crackled. "Unmarked vessel, identify yourself," Jalen replied with a coded phrase. "The stars burn brightest when no one is watching." A pause, then a calm female voice answered. "Confirmed." "Welcome home, Jalen Ward. Docking Bay 3 is ready." Nyara gave him a sidelong glance. "You have many friends, it seems." He shrugged. "Friends? Maybe. Allies, definitely fewer." The docking clamps latched on with a metallic thud. The airlock cycled open, releasing a gust of recycled oxygen. Waiting for them was a tall human woman in a gray uniform, eyes sharp and expression unreadable. "Jalen," she greeted. "You look worse every time I see you." "Good to see you too, Annika," he replied. "We need help, and she needs to speak to your council." Annika's gaze flicked to Nyara. "An Athetherin," she said coolly. "You've been busy." "She's not the enemy," Jalen said firmly. "That's for the council to decide," Annika replied. "Follow me." They were led through narrow corridors lined with crew from half a dozen species. Humans, Drethar defectors, even a few Athetherans in civilian garb. No one saluted. No one shouted. It was quiet, purposeful, united. The council chamber was small, circular, and filled with tension. Representatives from the major races sat around a central table. Jalen set the holopad on the surface and projected the files into the air. "These records show years of illegal weapons trading," he said. "The Earth Consortium's been fueling both sides. The war's a machine, and someone's been feeding it oil," the council murmured. The Drether envoy's eyes narrowed. "If this is true, it changes everything." Nyara stepped forward, her voice steady. "It is true. I have seen the destruction firsthand. My people fight for pride, yours for revenge. But we are all fighting for someone else's profit. The room went silent. She continued louder now. You asked what makes humans dangerous. I'll tell you. It's not their weapons, it's their courage to act when others remain silent. She glanced at Jalen. And maybe that courage is something the rest of us need to learn. Annika leaned forward. What are you suggesting? An alliance, Nyara said. Not of governments, but of truth. We take this evidence to every fleet, every planet. We expose the lie together. The Drethar envoy frowned. You would risk open rebellion? Yes, Nyara said simply. Because rebellion built on truth is better than peace built on blood. Jalen watched her, admiration in his eyes. The same warrior who had once begged for death now stood before leaders of 3 worlds, not as a soldier but as something far greater. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. The truth would be released. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, the two of them stood side by side. Outside the window, Vidian's moon glowed softly, and far beyond it the endless stars shimmered like distant fires. Jalen broke the silence. You know they'll come for us after this. I know, she said. But for the first time, I'm not running from death. I'm running toward life. He smiled faintly. That's the spirit I was hoping to see. She turned toward him, eyes bright with something that wasn't just reflection. You once said saving someone wasn't your job. You were wrong. You didn't just save me, Jalen, you changed me. He met her gaze. Maybe we saved each other. For a heartbeat, they said nothing more. The stars stretched out before them, endless, dangerous, and waiting. Where to next? She asked softly. Jalen grinned. Wherever truth still needs a voice. And as the horizon undocked and slipped into the dark, 2 figures stood together in the cockpit. No longer warrior and medic, no longer alien and human, but something rarer. Proof that even in a galaxy ruled by fear, hope could still find its way home.